Resolution approving professional services agreement with Damon Farber Landscape Architects for landscape architectural design services at Lake Hiawatha within Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park in the amount of $411,413, and amending the 2024 capital improvement program to transfer $428,000 of the Met Council regional funds from Luce Line Regional Trail implementation to Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park Plan implementation.
I think we would need a presentation. Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Peterson.
All right, thank you, Chair Thompson and committee members. This is looking at a professional services agreement for work, continued work at Lake Hiawatha and the golf course. It'll get us through a good portion of schematic design, which is still at the beginning stages of the design program there. So the basics of the PSA. We've got for the cost of the contract, $411,000 or so. We did negotiate a contract fee of $934,000. We did have an issue with bonding for this project, as we have with others. We had to get a little bit creative on how we are funding this in 2024. So we actually, we're going to be borrowing a little bit of money from another project that is at a bit of a stalemate this year, where we would not be spending that money anyways. And we would insert that regional park funding into this regional park funding. That's the CIP amendment that you see in the action. So we'd be bringing in a little over $420,000, I think it was. To this project for work in 2024. As we get towards 2025, we would be amending this PSA with DFA to bring us back up to that $934,000. It will be identifying regional park funding at that time to fill that gap. This work builds, this design work builds on the work completed at the park planning stage, or the master planning stage, between 2018 and 2013, or 2023, excuse me. It includes all new team members, so this is a brand new team. It's not a fresh start. They're very, very aware about the issues in this area. They've done numerous projects for the park board, the city of Minneapolis, as well as the Minnehaha Creek watershed district, so they're very, very familiar with this area and the issues that face Lake Hiawatha and the golf course. The result of this phase of consulting work will be a schematic design. What you've seen so far with the master plan or the park plan is essentially a bubble diagram of kind of what we want there, a bit of the program. We really didn't get into the weeds in terms of design work. This will get into those weeds. We'll start doing more intense design work around this, but following that same kind of master plan that we've included. And of course, community engagement. We'll be doing that throughout this process. It'll be starting on day one, lasting through the end of the contract process and design process, getting us to schematic design. So that's a very large portion of this work as well. It's not just design work. The team, we've got Damon Farber Landscape Architects. They'll be the project lead and landscape architect. They'll be helping with community engagement. We've also pulled in Ani Fernandez Landscape Architects to supplement the landscape architecture, because it is such an important portion of this work to figure out the different spaces connect with each other, and thinking really outside the box. We've also got Brandon Johnson Golf Course Design. He's an African-American golf course architect out of Florida. He used to work with Arnold Palmer Design before Arnold Palmer passed away a few years ago. And he's a brilliant golf course architect that can really help us here. We noticed right off the bat in the interviews with him and the team that he was calm and collected. He knew about the course. He had been to town, and he had already been there and walked the course. And he knows the background. He knows the National Register of Historic Places portion of it. So we're really kind of proud of having him on the team. We've also got HDR and Interfluve. Both of those firms will be helping us out as in the water resources role, as well as stream and wetland and engineering. And I will say that engineering is still a large part of this process, but it is more geared towards design. So you'll see a lot more landscape architecture. You'll see a lot more golf course design, and a little bit less of water resource engineering. We also have an architect on the project. We know that there is clubhouse work as well as work at on the river, not the river, on the new lake that could be created there. With a kayak launch area and kayak rental space, as well as a larger kind of community gathering building. So we want to have them help us through programming those spaces. We've got Full Circle Indigenous Planning and Design. They'll be helping with that architecture as well as some community engagement. We've got the 106 group and McDonald and Mack looking at cultural resources as well as historic architecture. We know that with the National Register of Historic Places designation, as well as the indigenous community there's a lot of deep roots and a deep history that we want to make sure that we're pulling out and is reflected in the final design. And then of course we have H&U construction. So we want to make sure that our cost estimating is correct and accurate as we go forward. What we don't want to do is design something that is unachievable. We want to be realistic with our prospects here and the dollars that we'd be identifying. So a little bit of how they were chosen. Essentially, we issued a request for qualifications that we advertised for both local and national firms. We received 8 statements of qualifications. That was a very good response. We had firms from around the country, even Europe, that responded to this. We reviewed those statements of qualification and scored them. We ended up interviewing 4 design teams, and we ended up selecting the Damon Farber team. They were just best suited for this work and had a really strong understanding of the project. Their interview was very well organized. There was just a really good vibe with that team, and we enjoyed the last several weeks of negotiating that contract and that fee and the final scope of work with them. We've got a schedule here. This may be pushed slightly depending on if this goes to the full board today or not, which is no big deal. We'll figure that all out. But it's essentially a 1-year project. If everything goes smoothly, we know this has already been a 9-year project, so it could go a little bit longer, but we're prepared to do that. We're prepared to take the steps to make this a successful project. Some of the sources that we're looking at, we do have those, that Metropolitan Council Regional Park funds. We're switching over from the Luce Line Regional Trail, which again is kind of a stalemate project that would not be using those funds this this year anyways. We do have some enterprise funds, as well as we're working with the city of Minneapolis to do some cost share on this. That $47,000 is 2024 estimated spending. That would increase to about $130,000 total into 2025. So we are looking to have some cost sharing with them. And then the uses below here, the PSA that you'd be approving this evening, some community engagement, staff time, and then an ALTA survey, a topographic survey, which is required for the project to kind of proceed and to actually do the design work. And that's what I got. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Shaffer.
Can you tell me a little bit about the city of Minneapolis cost sharing part of this project, and where that number comes from, and if we have an MOU with them around that? You can remind me.
Chair Thompson, Commissioner Shaffer, we don't have an MOU yet. We are working with the Public Works. Michael may be able to speak a little bit to that. But what we did is we estimated percentages of each task and calculated the cost based on those percentages. There's certain elements that the city would not be paying for, such as the golf course, but there are certain elements that would be included, such as their stormwater system, the pumping system, things like that. That would be included there. Michael.
To Commissioner Shaffer, let me expand on that because it's important. The way that the plan works is there are two sub-watersheds that run through the golf course property, a 70-acre watershed to the west and a 900-acre watershed reaching all the way to Lake Street that comes in from the north. The 900-acre watershed runs in a pipe that's essentially flat along 43rd Street. And since 2014, the city public works staff has been advocating for that pipe to be relocated, running from the northwest corner of the property in an open channel through the lake, which essentially we've established now. If they don't participate in this funding, they're not going to get an open channel in the lake, and they will be living with outdated infrastructure. This project, in so many ways, is the city's best opportunity for dealing with upstream issues in that 900-acre watershed. And the dollar amount that Tyler has outlined here and going into the second phase at about $132,000 is only the beginning of what the city will be paying for. When we get to implementation, there will be significant costs that will directly benefit the city, and they'll be paying a fair share of the engineering costs for that as well.
Okay, yeah, I was curious because it did seem a little low. Thanks.
Commissioner Menz.
So I noticed in one of the documents around the elevation, like we're going to be evaluating people's basements. Is that what I'm reading?
Yes.
Is
so
funding that we're paying for private homeowners to figure out if the flooding is impacting them. I mean, I think I've raised this issue multiple times, but I'm wondering about what our responsibility is for those homeowners' basements.
Chair Thompson and Commissioner Menz, I'll just speak to kind of the contract portion of it. Maybe Michael can fill in some blanks or some higher level things there. But so this is a part where the city would be helping us pay for this. We would essentially work with them and obviously the design team to design a new pumping system in the northwest corner of the park that would essentially protect homes to the same degree that they're protected today. Right now we are pumping water. We're creating a cone of depression of that groundwater, and a byproduct of that cone of depression or that pumping is homeowners' basements are less susceptible to that groundwater intrusion. And so a part of this project is working with the city of Minneapolis to identify and further understand homes' basements elevations in comparison to that pumping system, so that we design the pumping system correctly and protect some of those homes. It is a city of Minneapolis project. It's not something that I don't know, the park board is doing on its own.
Chair Thompson, Commissioner Menz, just a little bit of history here. The homes that we're talking about, many of the homes in this area were built in the 1910s, 1920s. And if you remember from Superintendent Bancor's presentation on water, the 1910 was the driest year on record. And the 1920s was the beginning of a drought across the country. Those homes were built when the wetlands when the wet part of the wetlands had receded, and developers could actually build homes there. In fact, many of those homes are built low and on piles because the underlying soils are unsuitable to support a house without pilings. Early in this process, the question was raised about the responsibility the park board had for protecting homes from flooding. And we had a discussion with Council Rice, and I believe it was City Attorney Newman. And it was fairly clear that this is not the park board's responsibility. But at the same time, we're changing a condition, and we want to be able to demonstrate that through the work that we're doing, we're going to protect the homes or the city, however we define the line between who's protecting, to the same degree that we protected them kind of as a byproduct of the pumping of the golf course that we've been doing up to this point. So when Tyler notes that we'll be protecting them to the same degree they've been protected today, it's not by any purposeful act that we did that. It just happens they were protected because we have this giant cone of depression that we've been pumping water from. We've engineered a solution in the master plan that will change the way that cone of depression works and still protect those homes. We just want to make sure from a city perspective, as we work with the city as a partner, that we're still doing that. So the city will be participating financially in that part of the project.
So they'll be pumping the water, or
So
I mean, it seems like
Chair Thompson, Commissioner Menz, I'm going to try and explain this using my hands. Right now, we have this cone of depression, and it's really wide because we're pumping from out near the lake. So in order to keep the entirety of the golf course dry, it's a huge cone of depression. The cone of depression is where we're sucking water into pumps and pumping out in the lake. It's dynamic, and it's not flat. What we're doing is we're going to be pumping from an elevation that's higher, allowing us to have a much smaller cone of depression to keep the houses dry. We'll no longer be pumping to keep the golf course dry. So this is where the city has to step in to fulfill that function. If they decide to do it, if they continue to decide to do it, to protect those homes to the same degree they've been protected as a byproduct of our pumping to keep the golf course dry.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Shaffer.
Yeah, I guess I will share a little bit. I have received letters from the Bryn Mawr Active Transportation Committee and some of my constituents concerned about this transfer from the Luce Line. And Commissioner Thompson and I have had some meetings even last week with some with some others. So I will not be supporting this tonight because this is a priority. This trail is a priority. I know we're working with the railroad, but if it was just allocated in 2024, and we've been trying to talk to them for 10 years plus, and we're starting to see some shifting now, then I don't know why we would take this right now. So people might have another opinion, but I cannot support this transfer at this time.
Chair Thompson, Commissioner Shaffer, I appreciate your position on this, but we have been working with the railroad for 10 years. In fact, we engaged Trust for Public Land, who quit the process because of the difficulty in dealing with the railroad. We are not closer today than we were 10 years ago.
I understand that, and but anyway, we can talk later, and I tried to email you, and I didn't get a response.
I too have gotten correspondence from constituents in District 2 who don't want us to shift this funding. I have a question regarding, this is nuanced, but from my understanding, that this particular part of the park is technically a neighborhood park. Is that correct? So transferring regional funds to a neighborhood park is also kind of feels squishy to me too.
Chair Thompson, this is not a neighborhood park. This is a regional park.
Lake Hiawatha Park
This is
is a regional park.
Chair Thompson, Lake Hiawatha Park is not a regional park. It's in the northeast corner of the park. That is a neighborhood park. This is the regional. This is a part of Nokomis-Hiawatha Regional Park. We are not spending money on a neighborhood park.
I respect that, but according to our own website, the golf course is technically part of the neighborhood park. I've been researching, it's very bizarre, so we need to fix one or the other. I respect what you're saying, but it's a little squishy for me. Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, just to say, you know, I'll be supporting this. You know, I think I actually presented the Luce Line Regional Trail for bonding the last couple of sessions when we do our Metropolitan Council, our regional parks lobbying, and it's a great project. But you know, as a park board and as a commissioner, you know, I kind of have an internal priority of projects that are kind of the utmost importance. Hiawatha is one of those, and it's really important that we get started on this. Because as we've learned with North Commons, if we delay and we push off and we don't find the funding at the appropriate time in the appropriate order, it can cause a whole slew of issues. Luce Line's great, it's a great project. Unfortunately, Hiawatha takes precedence and we'll move forward with this. And, you know, Michael's a very smart man, and if he tells me that we're not close to something, we're not close to something. He knows how to make things happen, I believe. So I'll be going with our staff and with the priority of this important project here. And hope my fellow commissioners do as well.
Before I let Vice President Benny speak, I have one question that you said in your presentation, Mr. Bridgerson, that part of this request is due to, quote, the state's failure to bond. Was this somehow in our bonding request, this project?
Chair Thompson, we don't have Director Arvidsson here who has the knowledge of all bonding. We receive through Metropolitan Council a certain amount of bonding dollars. Yes, with the lack of a bonding action by the legislature this last session, we did not receive all of our 2025 and beyond Metropolitan Council bond dollars.
So we get, just to clarify, we get bonding unallocated just to MPRB through Met Council? Or no? Sorry, yes, Council Rice.
We did in the bonding, in our request to the legislature, prioritized a Hiawatha Nokomis project. I think we asked for $1 million. I think it was one of the top priorities. And what happened in the bonding bill, you know, we've heard the story about North Commons, that missed it by 45 seconds, but the whole bonding bill failed, and included in the bigger package would have been an allocation of $5-6 million to the Met Council, which would have been matched with local funds. So had the bigger bonding bill passed, there would have been money for this project. It was prioritized by this board, but since there was no bonding bill, there's no money.
Thank you.
Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Vice President of any.
Thank you, Chair Thompson. I'm not on this committee, but I guess I'm hoping to see the committee pass this because the team is assembled, the contract's imminently in place. This is money that can be spent, not just sitting encumbered. It sounds like the other money might just be sitting encumbered, but not being able to be spent. And it makes good use of those dollars. And maybe we should be also kind of thinking about ways in which we do put money in, encumber money that isn't imminently spendable. We have other examples of that sometimes in our system. But I think this thing is ready to go. Would be nothing standing in the way. And it's better to complete this on the schedule proposed, which is something like maybe optimistically a year, maybe a little more. But then we would have something complete and ready for construction. So, and we are having the wettest, we're going to probably end up with the wettest or one of the wettest seasons or summers or years on record. And actually, some of the things that Superintendent Bangor was talking about in the numbers, the berm, I don't know if you said this, but I know for a fact that the berm was holding back quite a lot of water, and the lake was 6 inches below the top of the berm. So the systems we have there aren't going to last forever under these conditions, so.
I have a gut feeling that if I take this to a vote right now, it will not pass. So in deference to our colleague who has worked tirelessly on this project and is not able to sit here and comment on it, I would like to move to postpone this resolution, and I will always appreciate a shorter meeting, and I know I made it longer by having us all do this, but I feel like it feels like the right thing to do. If I don't get a second, then that's fine. But I would like to move to postpone Resolution 2024-152. Would anyone like to vote on that for me? All in favor of voting to postpone, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Okay. Then I say, let's take this to a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-152, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. That resolution fails. And with that, the Administration and Finance Committee is adjourned.